All right, so have you ever, thought about all those things that, you know, maybe history got wrong? Or at least, didn't get quite right?
Oh, absolutely. History's full of those little mysteries and things that make you go, wait, what?
Totally. And today, we are taking a deep dive into one of those head scratchers, the Dogon people of Mali, and their astronomical knowledge, let's say.
Yeah, their knowledge of the stars is it's something else, especially for a culture that, didn't have telescopes or anything like that.
Right. So picture this. The Dogon live in this really amazing place, the Bandai Escarpment. It's like this massive cliff in West Africa. And for over 1,000 years, they've been there living their lives and, well, seemingly knowing stuff about the universe that, well, they shouldn't.
Exactly. And the big thing here is Sirius, right? The Dogon have all these traditions about the Sirius star system.
Yeah, Sirius, the dog star. It's the brightest star in our night sky. But here's the thing. The Dogon weren't just talking about Sirius A, the one we can all see. They were talking about its companion star, Sirius B.
And that's where things get really interesting. Sirius B is a white dwarf star. It's tiny, incredibly dense, and most importantly, you can't see it without a pretty powerful telescope.
So how did the Dogon know about it? I mean, Western astronomers only figured out Sirius B was there in the 1800s, and they had telescopes.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets even wilder. The Dogon knew about Sirius B's elliptical orbit around Sirius A. They said it takes about 50 years to complete one orbit, which, as it turns out, is spot on. They even described it as very heavy, which again is true for a white dwarf.
So we're talking about a culture with no fancy equipment, knowing details about a star you can't even see, and they've known this stuff for centuries. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And, it makes you wonder, how did they get this knowledge?
Right. Well, the Dogon themselves say their knowledge came from beings called the Nommo.
A Nommo.
Yeah, the Nommo. According to their traditions, the Nommo were amphibious beings, think part fish, part human. And they supposedly came from the Sirius star system and shared this wisdom with the Dogon.
Amphibious aliens from Sirius teaching astronomy. Now that's a story.
I know, right? It sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But then you have those crazy accurate details about Sirius B. It's like, wait, maybe they're onto something here.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility, right? We can't just dismiss it out of hand. But, of course, there are other explanations out there, too.
Oh, for sure. Some researchers think that maybe the Dogon learned about Sirius B through contact with Europeans, like anthropologists or missionaries, who might have shared some of the latest astronomical discoveries.
Yeah, that's a valid point. There was a lot of interaction between Europeans and African cultures in the 19th and 20th centuries. It's possible some of that scientific knowledge could have trickled down.
Right. And specifically, there was this anthropologist, Marcel Grial, who spent a lot of time studying the Dogon in the mid-20th century. He's the one who really brought their astronomical knowledge to the attention of the Western world.
But there's been some debate about Grial's work. Some later anthropologists question whether he might have, unintentionally influenced the Dogon's accounts. Like, maybe the way he asked questions shaped their responses.
Ah, so like leading the witness, kind of?
Yeah, something like that. It's a tricky thing with anthropology, you're trying to understand another culture, but you're also coming in with your own perspective and
That
biases.
kind of makes sense. And there's another theory, too. Maybe this knowledge about Sirius B wasn't common knowledge among all the Dogons. Maybe it was only known by a select few, like religious leaders or elders.
That's possible too. And that could explain why some anthropologists found inconsistencies in what different Dogon people knew about Sirius.
Right, so it's like a big puzzle with all these pieces. And
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out how they fit together.
exactly. And here's another piece. The Dogon have this really important ritual called the Sigi Festival, which happens every 60 years. And guess what? Some people think it's connected to the orbit of Sirius B.
Wait, seriously? So they have a festival that lines up with the orbital period of a star they can't even see. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. And some researchers argue that this festival, with all its masks and symbolism, predates the Western world's discovery of Sirius B. So, did the knowledge of Sirius B inform this ancient ritual, or did the ritual somehow get linked to later astronomical information?
It's like that chicken and egg thing, right? You don't know which came first.
Exactly. And to complicate things even more, there was a French expedition to observe a solar eclipse in Dogon territory back in 1893, and that group included astronomers. So maybe some astronomical knowledge could have been exchanged then.
Hmm, interesting. So we've got these possible points of contact with Europeans. But I'm still stuck on those specific details about Sirius B, like its density and invisibility. That stuff just seems like it would be really hard to figure out without modern technology.
Right, and that's why the idea of the Nommo, those amphibious beings from Sirius, is so intriguing. It offers a possible explanation for how the Dogon could have gotten this advanced knowledge.
Yeah, it's a pretty mind-blowing explanation. But even if we set aside the Nommo, the Dogon's knowledge of Sirius B is still remarkable. It challenges our understanding of how ancient cultures viewed the cosmos.
Absolutely. And it raises so many questions about the transmission of knowledge, the limits of our own understanding of history, and, the possibility that there are things out there that we haven't even begun to imagine.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with more questions than answers. Did the Dogon really get their knowledge from extraterrestrial visitors? Did they figure it out on their own through meticulous observation? Or is it a combination of different influences over centuries? The mystery remains.
And that's the beauty of it, right? It keeps us curious, it keeps us exploring. And who knows, maybe someday we'll unravel the full story.
Maybe, maybe not. But one thing's for sure. The Dogon and their knowledge of the stars are a reminder that the universe is full of surprises. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. And for all you listeners out there, keep those minds open and keep exploring.
And don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more explorations into the unknown. We'll be back soon with another mind-bending mystery. Until then, stay curious, everyone.